Hey everybody. Hope everyone is doing well today. I had the day off and did some reworking in my studio, got some new equipment in and thought I'd hop on for a short time and just try it all out. That's sort of one of the main reasons I'm here is uh, just to uh, try everything, make sure it all works okay, make sure you all can hear me. And I really do appreciate anybody who is able to stop by Spirit of Avalon at Sandra. I'm learning, getting that channel name switch straight in my head. So I appreciate you stopping by. I hope all is well with you. Yeah, we're basically I can kind of go through a rundown, but one of the big changes that you might notice here is a giant set of shelves or organization for my decks and to keep them all in reach. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And so, so I was struggling at times in the past when I would do, especially lives, because you never know what's going to be called on, and if you want to pull a deck in and try something out. I had things organized that were kind of off to this side and in a something that was not designed to hold tarot decks, I guess I should say. Hello, Gerald. Thank you very much for joining in. Great to see you. And thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to get this shelving up here. And down below it has some additional storage that holds like those fabric cubes that kind of slide in. And that's a great place where I can keep all of my um, all of my incense and some different um, uh, you know, uh, various things that don't really have a great way to organize them. Just kind of loose things, some candles, stuff like that. Um, I upgraded my audio equipment. So this is a new mic. It's a Shure XLR mic. I don't know a whole lot about audio equipment, but did a little bit of research to try and find out, what might be helpful in terms of getting nice, solid, consistent audio quality. And then also got a little what's it's called a PodTrack P4 from a company named Zoom, which is a little mixing little digital mixer that comes with four inputs for microphones. If you wanted to add anything in, you can accept phone calls on it. So, which is also kind of interesting because um, let's say I have a live planned with someone and they have technology issues that come up because that happens. I could still do that live with them if they were able to phone in. Um, which I thought would be pretty interesting. It also has some really cheesy stuff in it, like some built-in sound effects. So yeah, I don't know if that came through or not, but you can actually reprogram those buttons, which I'm glad of. You can change them to other things, little music clips or other sound effects and that sort of thing, which could be fun. I don't know if I'll use any of that or not, but very interesting. So yeah, the organizing was the really big part. That was my project this morning. Having the day off, I knew I wanted to hop out, do some shopping, find out what I could use. This is actually a closet organization system, definitely pretty widely available, at least in the big box um, hardware stores in the U.S. Um, yes, yeah, definitely. This is actually true for me right now, even with the idea of discovering things I'd forgotten, and it's resonating. So, definitely one of those things that um, essentially over the period of time that I was off of YouTube, having received some decks, having received some other various other things related to what I do in the YouTube channel, they sort of started accumulating on the table where I set things up here, and wasn't so great. Those didn't feel good. Coming down to the space and having a few a few piles to encounter. It just doesn't do a lot of good for the psyche. So, hi, early ritual, welcome. Thanks for joining. Again, to just kind of hopping on for a little Friday fun, and to try out my new studio equipment, things like that. So, really appreciate you joining in. So, um, one thing I wanted to share is something while I was out running my errands this morning. Um, I had been searching for I like to listen to audiobooks and podcasts if I have errands to run or something, from working on a project. And I had been searching for a tarot podcast that really fit my style, um, what I like to learn, and some tarot podcasts are geared more towards, or at least some of the ones I saw when I was looking through, geared a little bit more towards reading, um, short little snippets. They would do some readings for a day, maybe feature a card of the day. So interesting things like that, but short, not necessarily a ton of depth that I can nerd out on, because that's what I like to do. I like to hear some history and things like that. Um, Alicia Jade, thanks for joining. I appreciate you coming in. Want to say hi there. One of the things I found is a new podcast. Let me take a sip and then I'll pull it up for you. Some of you may have heard of this one before, but let's take a look. Try and share the screen. Well, that's not going to work. We don't want blinky weirdness. Let me remove it and I will perhaps try it again. I think I know what's going on there. So I'm actually going to have to leave it off, but I'll just tell you what it is, and then maybe I'll put something in comments about it later. Uh, so it is called In Search of Tarot, and it is really interesting. There's 69 episodes currently, so it's a decent sized catalog. If if you want to kind of dive in, it looks like they've been consistently making content now. It maybe 3 times a month, maybe even once, maybe it's much as once a week. Now, I've only listened to 1.5 episodes, so I haven't done a really extensive thing about this, but um, the most recent episode is called Shuffling Through History, Mexican Mysticism and Cartomancy. It's a two-part series. So they did one last week, and then one came out yesterday. Part two came out yesterday. So that's what I had listened to. So um, it's so cool. It's just talking about, brings in other cultures and some other traditions and things like that. Just really fascinating stuff. So it's really getting to me right now, because I really like. I just want more depth in the content. That's what I've been seeking lately, and this really just hit the nail on the head for me. Going back a couple of episodes, December 1, they had Queering Astrology with Jeff Hinshaw. Um, so then we had Shaping Our Stories with Finn Schubert. So a lot of it looks like there's a lot of interview content, things like that. So very, very cool stuff. Just wanted to throw that out there. Again, it is called In Search of Tarot, and I found that through Apple Podcasts, but I imagine it's one that shows up on most, Spotify, any other podcast venues. So, and Gerald says, I'm having flashbacks. Haven't listened to podcasts for quite a long time. Listened to a lot of knitting podcasts for about 15 years ago. Yeah, it's great. There's just so much good content out there, and uh, half the half the battle is trying to find one that appeals to you at any given time, because there's usually a lot about any given topic. And that's true of tarot too. There were quite a few out there, and I was just sort of sifting through the list, and looking at the episode titles was a good clue, because some of them would just talk about a specific card, or they would say the morning coffee and card, or just some sort of quick reading style, which is fine too. um but again, I wanted something that was maybe a little more extensive, and this is really it's a really good one. Um So that happened today. So I'm excited to continue whenever I have time to listen to that. Um, it's Gerald says, I truly appreciate the weaving of cultures together. I like finding how we are alike instead of how finding how we are different. Absolutely. That's a big thing. Something I really enjoy is, looking at things as a from almost a sociology, anthropology point of view, especially when it comes to this sort of practice in these traditions. It's really interesting. It had so much depth to the experience. If we come in with a narrow cultural view um, with tarot, we in some ways artificially limit what we can get out of it as a tool. I think. Maybe. Do you agree? I don't know. I feel like that's true of so many things in life that we artificially narrow the scope if we keep our views narrow. So hmm, it is a tarot obviously has such a rich history. Um, it touches so many different cultures. Cartomancy in general is a part of many cultures. Um, so I feel like every time I hear a new story or new tradition from a different culture, I feel like that just makes the whole experience so much richer. I can see a lot more coming out in the card imagery, um, even in something that's a little less descriptive in its artwork, like a pip deck or something. Even in that, sometimes just the style um, of the characters and the embellishments that are put on the pips themselves sometimes can have a feel to them, and sometimes those things I think are culturally based and or at least have their roots in different cultures, different traditions for artwork, especially. So, um, yeah. So narrow views don't stretch our comfort levels. Yes. And I always welcome that challenge to my own psyche and my own approach. I really enjoy. I took a class in college that was the sociology of food, and it was fascinating. The teacher, the professor, uh, she was a pretty incredible professor. Had quite a lot uh, of great studies on her own that she had conducted and contributed to the field. But she also was exploring specifically the topic of food from a sociological perspective, um, which is different than what I had ever seen before. Anthropology touches on food in a lot of ways, just because it's important to traditions that are uh, the concentrations of anthropological study. Um, but the way the sociology of food class was structured, not only did it have the traditional there is no text for it. That's one of the things she was working on, actually. But it certainly had a lot of traditional classroom lecturing and note taking and things like that. But we also would open a bag of, let's say, crickets that were it, intended for human consumption in class, and people were encouraged to participate, but didn't have to. Obviously, different people have different feelings on that, but usually, if you're coming into a sociology of food class, unless you have some dietary preferences that would divert you from that, usually you're pretty willing to and open to trying new things. So, um, yes. So, yeah, it is hard to find good tarot podcasts. So, um, yeah, I prior to this, I was only listening to one. It was the Tarot Wildly podcast, I believe it's called, or Wildly Tarot, one of the two. Um, it's a good podcast. I like their structure, their consistency. They're really fun people to listen to. But I wanted some variety. I guess is I wanted just a different angle, and this answers that for me. So this class, here we are, occasionally eating crickets and things like that. And then at one point, there was a grad student in the school that he was from a sub-Saharan African nation. I can't remember which one, but he came in and talked about his the food traditions in his village where he came from. He came from a very small village. Um, and he talked a lot about something we listen to and hear about from a lot of other cultures outside. I'm talking other cultures, maybe not necessarily Western. So that's basically what I'm comparing to here, where Western culture, particularly in America, food waste is so high. A huge percentage of the food that we generate is eventually just destined for a landfill. It just goes to waste, which is a tragedy. But that's a topic for another time, perhaps. Um, but a lot of other traditions around the world have ways of maximizing the use of pretty much everything. So if they slaughter an animal, they will use every part of that animal to make sure that um, nothing goes to waste. And so he talked a lot about that, including and this was a takeaway that I won't forget. I don't think. Um, One thing that they do is they actually eat the bones of chickens. So um, it bird bones in general are they're less dense than a lot of other creatures because they're supposed to be lightweight. Even though chickens don't fly, they still have bird like bone structures. So anyway, I don't want to go too far down that path in case anybody's disturbed by it, but that is I thought that was pretty fascinating. And he talked about how that's just that was such a normal thing for him that he was surprised when he came to the States for his education. People didn't do that, and he didn't know that that wasn't a normal thing here. Um, so that was interesting. So I don't know what got me down this path of talking about sociology of food, but um, interesting stuff. Anyway, I thought it was pretty fascinating, and well, I guess part of that was just the concept, like Gerald was talking about. Narrow views don't stretch our comfort levels. um, that was one thing I really appreciated about the faculty, and that professor in particular. She was big on that, um, pushing us into broader views and really challenging the narrowness of our scope and how we think of things. So, um, oh, Hershey's here. Hi, good to see you, and it's been a while. So, I appreciate you dropping by. Comfort zone to me is a red flag that something is out to show me how comfortable I really am. I know that no matter how negative, there's always something to be positive about. Yep, very true. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been challenged in the workplace before just by that sense of a comfort zone. Um, if I reach that point, sometimes when I'm at work, um, I get bored. I notice that I'm bored, so I know something's not. I'm at that comfort level, and of course that's not necessarily referring to a cultural phenomenon or how we feel about broadening our horizons, and uh, it's but I do think that can be a signal, can be a red flag for a lot of things. Um, and especially for viewpoints. If you encounter something or someone that has different viewpoints than you for whatever reason, um, and you feel uncomfortable, um, I think a lot of people take that discomfort and misinterpret it. I think our natural reaction as humans, it's not that people are inherently bad in most cases. I think the natural reaction is when you meet discomfort, when something you encounter about somebody else maybe makes you uncomfortable. We're not talking about things that are unsafe, obviously. Um, but if you encounter that and it makes you uncomfortable, that's your internal mental environment that's actually creating that discomfort. It's your maybe your bias or your narrow view that is essentially saying, um, "This is other." It's classifying. It's broadly classifying what you're encountering, and I've grown to enjoy that sensation because I know that um, I'm about to expand my view a little bit more, um, because I don't let that discomfort turn me away from whatever it might be or whatever that characteristic that person has, or um, I don't let it push me away. I don't allow that discomfort um, to turn me away from that new encounter. Instead, I embrace it because I've after practicing, and that's what it takes is practicing. After practicing for years, encountering something new like that and stepping back and saying, let me just have an open mind here for a minute, and then just see where it goes. And then suddenly you've just added a whole new category to your worldview, and that can be pretty exciting. I think it's neat. So going on a bit of a tangent on our on just being open minded um, and appreciating other people for whatever they bring to the table. But I do enjoy that. I think I like that challenge, and I just like you said, Gerald, it's that stretching of comfort levels that I think makes us richer people in general and contributes to society. So that being said, In Search of Tarot, neat podcast. Enjoying it so far. I'm anxious to see where it goes from here. So um, I don't know what people have going on for the weekend. We have some winter holidays coming up and ongoing. And I know, for a lot of people, if you have kids, that means some time out of school in a lot of cases, and that changes the dynamic and adds, some fun things, some opportunities there. Some people take some time off of work. I know a lot of my coworkers who have been around longer than I have some extra time that they can take off. So fun, they get to do some traveling, take a couple weeks off, and so that's exciting. But I won't be taking quite as much off, but I have a little bit of time, so that'll be fun. But also some interesting, fun stuff that I've seen here and there coming up on channels and things. Some fun broadcasts, and I've been catching little bits here and there. But things have been, super busy with work, so occasionally getting to work lurk, but even not even as much of that as I would really like to do. But yeah, so oh, that was one thing, Gerald. I wanted to plug your. I'm sure everybody that is going to see this or would see this or is here now would have already experienced this probably because most of we have, I have quite a fewer viewers than you do, and I think they pretty much all came from your channel or Simon. So a lot of crossover there. However, I feel it's important to point out because I really thought it was fascinating. Um, the video you did with Medium Betsy Palmer on bay leaves and ritual and magic and things like that around bay leaves. Um, just awesome. It was so cool, and I'll tell you, it's become part of my daily routine, and I really enjoy it, and I really appreciate your advice about the tweezers because for those of you who have not burned a bay leaf before or haven't seen that video, you'll notice it when Gerald lights his. Um, the they tend to go up pretty quick and they pop in fizz because there's some oils in there and stuff. But boy, do they smell amazing. So really very fun. So yes, definitely check out that video. It was pretty incredible. So I look forward to more of those. I don't know if you have additional videos along that line planned. Um, but I definitely really appreciated that one. So, and Gerald, looks like you're sewing Yule gifts this weekend, so that's fun. And Yeah, have no doubt, Sandra, that will be lovely. We've seen some examples of his work, and it's pretty incredible. So, yes, those, um, and that I mean, I was part of the group that had experienced um, bay leaves in cooking because I've been cooking all my life, and that just was my introduction to bay leaves. So I never really thought of them much outside of that. Pots of soup and various things like that, roasts and stuff. But yeah, didn't see that one coming, and I was pretty excited. So, one thing that um, you had mentioned, Gerald, and I appreciate it too, is the fact that you try to get organic bay leaves, and that's there are so many different sources too, and I've noticed that um, you can get sort of the bulk bay leaves that they're super dry. They tend to be all broken up and things like that. I'm wondering if you've discovered any specific sources um, that seem to be maybe, how do I put this? Maybe just a little closer to harvest or something. I don't know if that's exactly what I'm looking for, but I know um, it, it just seems like there's a lot of variations in quality for bay. That's been my experience anyway. So, and cooking is definitely magic. It's all about intention. Absolutely. Cooking is magic. Cooking is chemistry. Chemistry is magic. Magic is often chemistry. So there's a lot of that's crossover, um, and it is all about intention. Absolutely. So, um, yeah. So it will be sort of a normal weekend for me. I am again. I took today off, but I have a relatively normal week next week for work. But I'm hoping to hop back on again this weekend, maybe. And I may ask some fellow content creators if they'd have any interest in hopping on, maybe doing some reading sessions or something. I think that'd be fun. So let me know if anybody's interested in doing that. I think we could certainly find some time for that this weekend. That would be quite nice. So Mountain Rose Herbs. So good to know. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I assume is Mountain Rose Herbs. Is that a website that we could go to that kind of ships in the US, or what's, I'm not sure what if that's local to you or something. Let us know if you could. Oh yeah, Sons of Asgard. So yes, I've heard mention of that on Simon's channel as well. And I believe you've mentioned it on your channel too, Sandra. So sounds like a great place. I don't uh I don't imagine that maybe they do ship to the US. Not sure. Well, right now I understand you're going through a postal strike as well, which certainly adds some level of difficulty, but hope that gets resolved for everyone's sake soon. So yes, Mountain Rose Herbs is US based. Thank you. So yes, and if you could, yeah, if you don't mind linking that, that'd be great. So Hershey's learning candle magic. Um, didn't know that setting intentions are so strong. Yeah, yeah, candle magic is fascinating too. I've seen some spell candles that are pre-made in a little local metaphysical shop. There's someone that makes these candle spells. Basically, you can of course do your own, which I think that gets to that intention point. But also you can use what has been created or assembled by others. I think too, with the right intention and just really how that feeds into it. So I'd be interested to hear how that goes for you and what your experience is like with that. So that could be great. So yeah, I appreciate that. So yes. So do ship to the US, but we have postal strike here at the moment. Yeah. It's unfortunate. Um and it may be that, I mean, it's probably not too dissimilar from some of the shops and sources we have here in the US anyway. So shipping across the pond isn't necessarily going to be the right choice for a lot of that stuff. But it's funny, you just hear about sources like that and get excited, that maybe they have something to offer that you might not be able to get locally. So, um, yeah, candle magic, interesting as well. The Some of the ones that I saw in the shop, um, they almost look like someone took a soft candle that had maybe been heated a little bit and pressed some herbs to the outside and some various items. I think there were even crystal chips involved in some, which is really neat. So yeah, quite a few different things that can be done there. So that's definitely fun. And the one thing I do not currently have is a cauldron. The one shop that I go to has quite a selection. So at some point I'm going to pick one up. I do have a small soapstone vessel that was designed for um, incense, where you get chunks of, I can't think of what it's called now, but the incense that is basically you buy pieces of myrrh and other things and then burn them over the charcoal. That's what this was designed for. It was where you hold the charcoal basically, and that can be used as a cauldron of sorts. But um, I still think I'd like to have something a little more sizable. That's very small. It's not too much bigger um, than a little. Uh, I can't think of the term now. The little tea light candles, the little candles. Um, so yes. So anyway, um, I think I am going to wrap it up there. We're getting a little over a half hour, and I just wanted this to be kind of a quick way to say hi to people and thank you so much for joining in. I really appreciate it. It just makes my day to see all my favorite people jump on and say hi. Thank you for taking the time to stop in. And Cheryl did pop the link there. I really appreciate that. So check them out. I'm going to see if I can get some Bay and some other things there as well. Um, so again, thank you. Very nice to see everyone. Thanks a lot for stopping in, and hopefully this weekend we'll hop back on, maybe do some readings, some card pulls. Oh, I do have a spread that I did. Maybe if you have a second, maybe I'll show you real quick because I think it's kind of cool. Um, I guess the deck doesn't really matter all that much here. Let's do the mini oak ash and thorn, which is fun. So sorry for the false alarm. You almost got away. But let's all right. Sorry, folks. All right. Let me just show you real quick because I thought this was I had a pretty incredible experience with this actually. I had a giant project wrap up at the end of a work day. Um, and I thought, hey, uh, I'm gonna pull some cards, see what happens. Um, but I wanted to think of a better way to do just a short spread um, that could help inform how I move forward after finishing this, what was kind of a monumental task. Um, So here's what I did. I was thinking of a 3-card spread, and I was thinking, past, present, and future is super common, um, but the the past part I always struggle with. So I don't always wanna use that. I don't know, something about the past thing just doesn't quite do it for me. So instead, well, let's try. There we go. So what I did instead was I thought, okay, um, what uh, what is the current situation, and then what are two possible paths uh, that could extend from this current situation. And then, of course, I did not thoroughly shuffle, so we're not going to talk about exactly what's pulling here. And then, what is a key influencing factor on those two potential paths? Um, so I really enjoy how this played out. Um, and as Gerald says, um, like to approach it as what was, what is, and what will be. And absolutely, I like that as well. Um, and what I really liked about this setup is that um, it allows you to think about. It sort of forces you to think about two different potential outcomes from a given situation, and then work with that. Um, and in addition, then pulling that fourth card as the influencing factor. Um, so when I did this the other day at the completion of this big work project, um, it boy was it spot on. I'll tell you. Um, I got 4 of Wands as the where I am now. That celebration feeling of having um, completed that process. Um, and I really felt that way. I mean, I genuinely just felt, um, you know, uh, really not just celebrating, but celebrated, because the project went very well and was appreciated at work. So, but then um, for the two paths, I got 10 of Swords and I got Justice for the two potential paths. With the Ace of Swords was my influencing factor, and without going too far into how I felt about all that and how I interpreted it all, it really struck. I mean, it was just spot on. Uh, Felt wonderful. It was very, very interesting, and I wanted to share that spread. Um, so just something for thought. Uh, so anyway, um, so yeah, I well, I'm not really good at journaling. I'll admit. I do really like the digital journaling, um, but I also am a sucker for handwritten stuff. And what I find is that as a result, I do little of both. I don't really, I don't do enough. But what I did in this case, I immediately took a picture because I thought, wow, this is really this really worked for me, and I think it could be um, really helpful for others as well. So I took a picture, and I thought through it. I kept looking at that picture throughout the day when I'd have a minute to rethink everything as it um, to really explore it, and think at depth about that reading. So um, yeah, so Hershey's definitely gonna try it. Yep, I really enjoyed it. I think it's good. I want to try it for others as well. So I'm anxious to give that a shot. So with that, now now maybe I'll go ahead and sign off. So and I do really appreciate, again, everyone coming out. And yes, photos do count. Sometimes that's the only way I think I have time for it. I should probably be more intentional about that and make time anyway. Um, but I definitely do document via photos, and revisit that later, so okay, so that's it. Anybody has any interest in hopping on, maybe doing some readings this weekend? I think I'm up for it if we can find a time that works for everybody. Um, in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your Friday, and I look forward to seeing everybody again soon. Thanks a lot, folks.